Remember the olden days when everything was better and you had to write things on paper and Ultimate Team was played with actual stickers in the school courtyard? It was brilliant, wasn't it? Games were different back then too. Now, if you're really old, like 40 or something, you might remember things like marbles or hopscotch or hoop and a stick. That was a good one, wasn't it? Me and my mate used to play Knock Knock Ginger, which for the uninitiated is basically cowardice in game form and involves knocking on someone's door and then running away before you get told off.
Oh, come on, guys. I've been trying to record all day, for crying out loud.
Thankfully, 1995 then came along and PlayStation was invented just in time for me and my millennial chums to spend our formative years in the comfort and safety of our bedrooms playing some of the finest video games in the history of the medium. Here are 8 that instantly transport us back to our childhood. If you close your eyes and think back to the very first video game you ever played, I reckon there's a fair old chance it's a platformer. It was a genre that sort of acted as a technical test centre for the capabilities of a medium still in its infancy, allowing developers to tinker with physics, three-dimensional visuals and in-game storytelling, all while dressing their experiments in coats of colourful fun and calling them things like Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, Gex, Enter the Gecko, Toonby and Ape Escape. If we're talking about platformers that tug our nostalgia strings, however, there's only one series that can make our first entry, and that is Crash Bandicoot. The unofficial king of PlayStation, this lovable orange marsupial was an integral part of our childhood. He was the reason we ran home from school every afternoon, got up early before school every morning, and spent lazy weekends hoovering up every last Wumpa fruit, spinning into every last crate, and grabbing every last crystal. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped was my favourite in the series and the entry I remember most clearly. It had everything. Levels where you charged through on the back of a tiger, motorbike races, dogfights. I mean, here we are thinking Naughty Dog has pulled out all the stops for Uncharted, but look what they were doing on PS1 for crying out loud. And it was tough too. Collecting all those relics and crystals was really hard for 12-year-old me. I'd lie there awake at night thinking about the stresses of growing up and how my parents hated each other and how I still hadn't got the box gem on Midnight Run. It's weird the things that stick in my memory looking back on Crash 3, the ominous swoosh of those dragons, the outrage when fighting N. Jin and he rocks up with more than double the health of any other boss, the startling realisation that Cortex hasn't been wearing a hat, and that's his actual stupid head. And you can't really talk about Crash without mentioning his big PS1 platforming rival, which is why entry number 2 is Spyro the Dragon. What a game! A platformer undoubtedly, but one which was doing massive open-ended levels filled with secrets and enemies that acted as the perfect punch bags for Spyro's satisfying offensive repertoire of fire and horns. Again, Spyro was a far tougher game than suggested by its cartoony appearance, although it was the first title I ever 100%ed, with later levels requiring precise skill and expert timing if you wanted to collect all the dragon eggs and free all the useless adults. If there's one thing guaranteed to snap me back to 1998 faster than a time machine playing Spice Girls on loop, however, it's this noise. That is the sound of reward. The sound of yes, you've successfully navigated this labyrinthine platforming obstacle course and found the last elusive dragon in the level. The sound of building anticipation. What is the dragon going to say? What sage advice will they give after I've spent all this time trying to free them?
Thank you for releasing me.
Is that it? Tomb Raider is next up, a game that takes me back for altogether different reasons, as Lara's original PS1 adventure was instrumental in teaching me all about failure. My failure, obviously, not the game's. The sad fact is I was never good enough to play Tomb Raider. I was too young, my brain not yet developed enough to grasp the exciting new three-dimensional space at my fingertips. along with Actua Soccer and Independence Day the game, neither of which are on this list, I hasten to add. Tomb Raider was one of the first PlayStation games I ever played. Until now, I'd been weaned on a video game diet of running sideways and jumping. The question of where do I go next was never one I'd had to answer, and so when faced with cosmic conundrums like pull switch to open door, I was completely lost. I struggled for a few days with Tomb Raider until my dad, loving soul that he is, got frustrated watching me and took it upon himself to trade it in for Ninja Shadow of Darkness. Another 3D action adventure, except that in this one you just threw knives at stuff. I settled for watching my mate's older brother play Tomb Raider instead. We experienced the shock and awe of the T-Rex huddled in the back of his bedroom, sitting on crusty football kits, eating leftover crisps and lit by the harsh glow of a portable CRT. Those were the days. I tell you what were the days, being invited to your friend's birthday party at Hollywood Bowl that his mum had paid for, and then telling her, "I'm just going to the toilet, Mrs. Price," before hiding in the arcade for the next 2 hours playing Tekken. Yes, I got in serious trouble, but oh man, was it worth it.
Oh, don't you worry, Linda, I will be dealing with him. Oh no, that's 4 weeks' pocket money he won't be getting back. No, definitely not. He can cross Sony PlayStation right off his Christmas list.
Despite my mum doing the age-old classic, tell him off loudly via a third party so we can definitely hear you parenting technique, she didn't make good on her threat, and under the tree that Christmas nestled a brand new PlayStation with my name on it. And pretty soon, entry number 4, the original Tekken, was mine. The novelty of having something in my bedroom that looked as good as an arcade beat-em-up, but that didn't have a stupid time limit or ask me to pay money every time I lost, was just wonderful. Oh, the graphics on that intro sequence. Oh, and it was all mine. I never tired of looking at those graphics, those actual humans with their actual arms and legs that did actual fighting on my actual TV. And those impact sound effects. Oh, right in the nostalgia sack. I feel entry number 5 doesn't really need an introduction. Instead, just have a listen to this and tell me your skin doesn't start to tingle. You could insert any PS1 era Final Fantasy in here and it would spark memories. For me, Final Fantasy VII is being in my bedroom all summer holiday, the sound of other foolish children playing in the street outside, drifting through the open window on a cool breeze, a bowl of quavers and a half-drunk can of Vimto on the floor, and me, caught up in the best game I'd ever played. When I was a kid, there were plenty of things I wasn't allowed to watch or play. Power Rangers was banned from my school after kids started kicking lumps out of each other on the playground. Although, to be fair, that wasn't actually us playing Power Rangers so much as arguing over who got to be the red one. And likewise, it was therefore banned in my house after our headmaster sent a whiny letter to all the parents. There were a couple of video games too my mum banned, namely Grand Theft Auto and Doom, and of course, I played them anyway. Entry number 6 goes to the latter, however, because that thumping musical score is so entrenched in my head as the soundtrack of exhilarating rebellion that it whisks me back to secretive nights blasting demons with a shotgun after my mum had gone to sleep. I had to borrow the game from my mate, who'd also borrowed it off his older brother, and then I hid the disc in my bedroom inside the box for Overboard, which was a sort of 2D top-down piratey thing you've probably never heard of. I wasn't any good at Doom and never got very far, but the thrill of playing something I knew was wrong just felt so right. Plus, back then, it looked the absolute business, and so I was perfectly content to shoot through the first area over and over, marvelling at the 3D-ness of it all and the wonderful sound of a reloading shotgun. The year was 1999. I was used to jumping on the back of the latest fad in my continuous quest not to be picked on, pogs, yo-yos, wrestling. But when everyone started turning up to school on skateboards and using words like sick and rad to describe things they liked, I must admit I was a bit bemused.
Why, Gavin? Why is it sick that I'm allowing you to copy my maths homework again? Because, Rob, it's a word I've learned playing Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, a game you also need to play.
Rubbish, I thought, never having had the slightest inclination to play a skateboarding game, but then Gavin lent it to me, and 2 weeks later...
Gonna airdrop over to my place later, Rob? Busting Casper flips, Gavin. I'm totally boning over to yours. Is James coming too? No, he's bailed, the stupid concave half-pipe. Man, what a Mongo lip slide.
We were hooked and drowned ourselves in skating culture while getting better and better and better at one of the slickest, most addictive sports games I've ever played. It was the absolute best fad, and I've still got the age 12 elbow pads in my mum's attic that prove I was a part of it. What a time to be alive. Final entry, and this is the game that defined my childhood more than any other, and if you're a regular viewer of these videos, I'm sure you already know what it is. Metal Gear Solid. It's just a perfect game. A tightly plotted, cinematic masterpiece in a meticulously designed setting featuring characters that have never been surpassed. It was so good and so ahead of every other game at the time that even my dad, a man naturally averse to anything without pages, would sit down and watch me playing as if it were a movie. Where other father-son relationships had football, we had Metal Gear. I no longer had to ask, Dad, can I play on the PlayStation please? Because he'd already be there, switching it on, handing me the DualShock. Play Metal Gear, play Metal Gear. It was the only thing we shared. One reason the game is so memorable for me. The other reason is that it's just a bloody brilliant video game, pushing further into the ominous depths of Shadow Moses, the plot twisting, the soundtrack, pulsing away as you neared the end. The DARPA chief's death, battling a tank, working out how to beat Mantis, resisting torture, sniping in the snow, the eureka moment of figuring out the shape-shifting card key, punching a man off the top of a nuclear tank you've just blown up, the music at the end. That's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed your soak in the nostalgia bath. Do let us know in the comments what games instantly take you back to your childhood, and join us again next week for another Friday feature. Thanks for watching.